And now we are ready to roll. Questions for Danny? Start with John Corrales.
Hey, Danny.
Hey, John. Good morning. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Good, thanks.
When did you first become aware of Gordon Hayward's openness to leaving as a free agent?
I think that I was anticipating the possibility for the last few months.
All right. Next question, Mark Murphy.
Hey, Danny.
Hey, Mark.
Did Gordon ever directly express to you that he wanted a more featured role?
You know, Gordon is a very unselfish player. When I refer to a more featured role, I'm not saying like he wants to score 25 points a game and take all the shots. I think he just wants to be involved in the offense more, like having the ball in his hands, dribble and pass and participate in the offense a little bit more. But yeah, listen, I've had a lot of players come through here and I'm sympathetic. I mean, I played with 3 first ballot Hall of Famers in the starting lineup, and I wanted to have a more featured role too. I think that it's very common, and I think that we have some good players, and Kemba and Jalen and Jason and Marcus, like those guys demand the ball some, and I think if you asked each one of them, they'd probably like to have a little bit more of a featured role. But that's the nature of our business that we're in. That's not any knock on Gordon in any way, shape, or form. And let me just start off by saying, I'm grateful that Gordon chose Boston, and I wish him nothing but the best. He's a good teammate. He's a good guy. He's a terrific player. And, I'm grateful that Gordon, missed the birth of his son and came to play and try to help us, even though he was far less than 100% this year in the playoffs. He made sacrifices to try to give us a better chance of winning. And it didn't work out for our team, but I'm grateful that he gave that kind of effort and his family made that kind of a sacrifice. And I wish Gordon nothing but the best, and I congratulate him on his new deal in Charlotte.
Just to follow up, what do you have to do now to make sure you have the right mix around Jason and Jalen? I mean, finding guys. I know Kemba is very happy to share his role with them or to back them up, so to speak. I mean, just what kind of a balance are you going to find in this team this year?
Well, it's a good question, Mark. It's something that we're always weighing. We're not just trying to find the most talented players. Sometimes you are looking for fit, especially when you're trying to fill in a roster around the edges and off the bench. So every player comes with certain strengths and weaknesses, from on the court part of their game to in the locker room to practice time to being able to play. I always thought that Walter McCarty was one of the few guys that we've had since I've been here that was able to sit for a game and then come in the next game unsure of what he was going to do, and all of a sudden just make shots and just play with so much aggression and passion. I think that's a very hard role to play. So oftentimes you're looking for guys that are good fits that can play in any kind of role that they have for them, and guys that can play off of Jalen and Jason and Marcus and Kemba, and guys that can take a bigger role when they're resting and sitting on the bench.
Jared Weiss.
Danny, you were one of the front offices kind of at the forefront of trying to build out a lineup with 3 wings and try to maximize versatility. Do you still feel that that's the ideal path to go down as you're building a long-term core?
I think that it's one path. Again, I will just say, who asked that question? I didn't see it here.
Jared Weiss.
Jared. It's a good question. I think that, we're trying to find the best players, Jared. Like, I don't think that there is a clear-cut way where you have to have three wings. I think you can have a traditional center, a traditional power forward, and two wings and a point guard every bit as well, and still win in our league. But we do live in a time where we have best players in our league. In Milwaukee and in LA, as an example, both LA teams, and they're arguably some of the best players in the game right now and in our path to win championships. And they happen to be wing players for the most part, although they can play pretty much any position on the court. And that's what we're trying to develop Jalen and Jason into.
John Corrales.
Danny, I'm sure you've seen the reports of Indiana's offer to you in your talks for Gordon Hayward. Would you characterize those as accurate? How did that go? Why weren't you able to get something done with Indiana?
So, John, I'm not going to comment on any conversations that I had. I'll let others comment if they want, but I'm not going to comment on conversations I have with teams involving other players from other teams. I will just say that Indiana was one of a handful of teams, maybe 3 or 4 teams, that would probably be a more accurate description, that we talked with the potential of sign and trades. And as you know, in sign and trades, the player controls that, because if we work out a deal with another team, but Gordon doesn't want to go there, then he doesn't have to go there. It takes all 3 parties to be pleased with where they're going and the contract that's being offered. But I'll just say that, we did have discussions with Indiana. I'm not going to go into the details. And we knew what the risks were. And we knew what all the options were. We could do sign and trades with Indiana, with a couple other teams, and with Charlotte. And there were cap possibilities, including Charlotte. Teams out there that had cap space that were willing to offer Gordon some of their cap space money. And we thought that any one of those options were good, but like our number one option was getting Gordon to come back. And so all the way to the end, we thought we were, but we weren't gambling with assets in our hands. We knew that all of those were very good options for many different reasons. And but I can't really go into the details of those conversations, John.
Brian Robb.
Hey, Danny, you guys are going to be a little shorthanded to start the season with Kemba and Romeo out. Are you looking to make any more additions to the roster ahead of the season, or were you kind of viewing this as an opportunity for the younger players on your roster to step up?
Well, Rob, as you know, did you think that we would cut Romy and Kemba to try to bring in other rosters? We do have 15 roster spots. So that means we still have 13. That means we still have 14 players, including our two-ways. So, I grew up in a time where we played with 12-man rosters and often had people hurt in training camp or early in the season. So I feel like, there's nobody that we want to cut or get off the team, and that's the only way that we can bring in more players for our roster. But yes, this will be an opportunity for Marcus play some point guard again for us, like he did some last year and did a very good job. And Jeff Teague and Peyton Pritchard and Tremont Waters. We believe in all those guys. Like those guys, this is an opportunity league, and there's nothing I like more is when guys that don't get a chance to play that get a chance to step up and play. And so Carson may get a chance to play too. Anyway, Aaron may get an opportunity to play early in the season too. Like I understand those aren't perfect situations where you just bring guys in without summer league and without training camp, but we'll see what we have, and I'm excited for it.
Tim Bontemps.
Hey, Danny, you had hinted a few weeks ago that Kemba might be ramped up a bit once you guys got going. How much of a long-term concern is there over the state of his knee after the way things have played out over the past several months?
Well, I think this next year will tell us a lot more. I think, he saw some specialists over the last, 6 or 8 weeks. And they all came to the same conclusion. And I think that gave Kemba a great peace of mind as he went to different really good doctors in our country and got the same opinions. And he's on a program. He seems to be in a very good, happy spot. And, maybe we didn't do him justice by bringing him back too fast into the bubble, and finding some urgency to get him ready during the regular season. But we don't want to make that mistake. If it even was a mistake this time, I don't know. I'm not blaming anybody, but it's not a perfect science. It's just guesswork, and we're trying to do the best with the information that we have to get him as strong and as healthy as he can be, so he's ready to make it through the year.
Was there a potential when he was meeting with those specialists, or was there a thought, at least in your mind, that there was a potential for surgery for him? And I guess the universal opinion was that was not necessary.
Well, that's why I avoid going to doctors, because I don't want that potential surgery. But I think that you never know. But I wasn't anticipating it, because our medical staff was pretty confident that they were doing what they needed to do. But you never know what someone's going to come up with. And so I think that they all conferred and they came up with the same conclusion. And I think that gave Kemba a peace of mind.
Final couple of questions. Adam Himmelsbach.
Dan, a couple quick ones. Can you just kind of describe the thought process and what went into bringing Tristan and Jeff here, and what you think they might bring to the team?
Yeah, well, I mean, Jeff, first of all, they're both veteran players, and we have a lot of young players, and I think that it was important for us this offseason to bring in some veteran players. Tristan's been on a championship team. He's played around some of the best players this game has ever seen. He has a lot to offer us. He's a good guy. He's a hard-working player. He plays both ends of the court. He's a really good roller to the rim and offensive rebounder. He can pass out of the rolls. He can finish out of the rolls. He can finish above the rim. And on defense, he's good. He's mobile. He can switch. He can keep the ball in front of him. And, he can run the floor. All great qualities for us to have from both leadership, personality, and on-court presence, and his quality of play. And Jeff is just a proven guy. He's had some really good games against us in the past. He's been on some very good teams. So he'll be a good leader in the locker room as well. I think that Jeff's at a stage of his career where he wants to share what he's learned in his 12-year career. Still has some juice, had a couple of 30-point games last year. And we still think that he can, step in, especially early on, to bridge the gap until Kemba comes back ready to go, but also play a significant role off the bench or in the starting role. I don't know how it's going to work out. Time will tell as the season goes on.
And then just lastly, we haven't spoken to you since Jason signed his extension. What does that mean to know he's going to be here for quite a long time, and just kind of the commitment and knowing he's a big part of this organization now?
Yeah, Jason has been fun. It's been a very bright spot of our franchise over the last few years, the development of Jason and Jalen and Marcus. Like, those guys have all really improved as players. I mean, we have Jason as an all-NBA player last year, and Jalen on the verge, I thought, of potentially right on the cusp of being an all-star this year, and he just got better in the second half of the year and in the playoffs. And Marcus being a first-team all-defensive player, I think, it's a good nucleus of guys, good players that are all getting better, still young enough. There's a lot of improvement left in their game. Very excited to have Jason on board and Jalen. And with their new contracts kicking in, Jason's kicks in next year and Jalen's kicks in this year. Anyway, just couldn't be happier having those guys around as building blocks.
Gary Washburn.
Hey, Danny, can you hear me?
I can, Gary. Good morning.
Good morning. Good to see you.
I don't see your picture on the screen though, in a suit.
Yeah, that's a really handsome picture, isn't it, Danny? Are you secure? Are you pleased with your bench? Your bench obviously had trouble scoring last year. You've made some additions. Or would you try to look for someone maybe to compete in camp for a job? I know you said you would have to cut someone, but are there intriguing players out there that you would maybe give a flyer to that might not have a roster spot, but they could potentially compete for one?
You listen, there are some good players out there. There's no doubt about it. I was just talking with an agent today who, had a list of about 4 or 5 players, and I just, I'm aware that those players are available, and I'm just going, wow, I hope that all the players out there can appreciate when they really get in the league, because there are good players that don't have jobs in the NBA right now, very good players. And listen, I think that, Gary, you may be right, but I'd like to see what we have. I'd like to give guys an opportunity first before we make a judgment that we don't have enough scoring off the bench. We have a couple of guys that didn't get a chance to play much last year, and I think can provide us some scoring punch. So time will tell.
Mark D'Amico.
Hey, Danny, good to see you. You talked about Tristan Thompson and the fact that he has championship experience. How valuable can that be to place that around players like Jalen and Jason, who have obviously had their own success in getting in the conference finals multiple times, but having that guy who's won a championship around them to kind of, give them any knowledge that can be used in that light?
Yeah, I think it's very valuable. It's not valuable as much if it's in some, old man like me, but I think for somebody that's actually competing on the court with them, who has won a championship, not only that, but they came from 3-1 deficit to beat a 73-win team. And I think that takes a lot of team chemistry and team building in order to accomplish those kind of things, at this level. So I think Tristan's experience in the NBA, he's seen a lot. And I think he's a good, hardworking guy, like I said. And so I think he'll add a lot. There's a lot of value to having him on our bench. And I shouldn't say on our bench, on our team and in our locker room.
Final question for Danny. Bob Schramm.
Hey, Danny, how are you?
Good, Bobby. Good morning.
Good. Echo what everybody else said. Glad to see you. Danny, the trade exception, was that an important piece to have in your toolbox? And then also, how great are Jason and Jalen to build around? And I know you've added Marcus to your discussion of the young core. How much are they at that level? And then the last thing I just wanted to say, that my last conversation with Tommy, I was going on about how this season, the bubble season, was a disappointment, and he stopped me. And he said, the important thing about this team is the potential. So is that in your thinking, to echo what Gary and Adam were talking about, bringing Tristan in and Jeff in, that veteran presence to get you guys over the top? Thank you, Brandon.
Yeah, I think potential is great, but as we all know, there's a lot of unfulfilled potential. And so, keeping their heads right, keeping them humble, hardworking, and continuing with the desire to improve, which I, at this moment in time, have zero doubt with those two guys. They've both been raised very well, and they have good people around them that I think are going to keep their heads on straight. And but it just helps to have teammates that are trying to help them get better and that are willing to play a subservient role to them, allow them to spread their wings while still helping contribute, and by helping them with things that are difficulties and challenges that they face on the court as well. But quite honestly, I think Jalen and Jason are pretty good in their own right, and their leadership skills are growing and blossoming. And I'm not really that worried about them. I think it won't be too long before they'll be the best leaders that we have here in Boston.
All right. Thank you for your time, Danny. We'll wrap it up right there.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thanks for being here.